So what's the most important thing you would think of when it comes to investing in any market, particularly a one that's very fast-paced like crypto? I'll give you a hint. It's not buying. It's not sitting there and waiting for your prices to go up, but it's actually selling your altcoins. Because if you do the selling wrong, you pretty much make all that waiting and buying mean nothing. So this is why most people leave the market with less money than they came in with, because they don't sell when they're supposed to, and they end up writing their tokens back down to oblivion. So I'm here today to help you avoid that massive sinkhole trap in the ground laid by the big guys, designed to make them more money and you nothing. It's a part of the cog we are all complacent, unfortunately, in right now. I'm going to help you escape it with this video. Pay very close attention. It is littered with alpha. I hope at least you can learn a few things from this and maybe apply them to your own portfolio. So, ladies and gentlemen, all I ask for in return, if you do enjoy this video or you learn something new, help support my work by dropping a like down below. But importantly, I want you to subscribe right now, pause the video, and do that so that you can achieve your crypto goals. All right, let's get on with the video, guys. So, first of all, I do want to make something very apparent, right? No one really knows for certain what is coming next. Before we dive into selling, and we will look at buying as well, it's very important to match up a good exit plan or exit strategy with a good entry plan as well, because they kind of work hand in hand. People don't think about it, but they really do. I want to look here quickly at the state of the market, okay? It's very important, again, because this will give you some idea of when you sell your altcoins. There's not some big kumbaya moment. Everyone like sells on the Bitcoin blow off top moment. I will show you here in a second. That is completely false. So it's important to look at your altcoins individually, but gauge the sentiment with the market. And right now, there's a few situations that could play out, okay? I think there's three distinct ones. The first one is the scariest, and that's really the importance and urgency behind this video, and that's this red line. We could be in a lengthening cycle right now, which represents the red line, and that would mean that we would end this current cycle on about the later half of this year. The second line here is this green pattern, which basically would just follow the 4-year cycle. We might top out anywhere between the early part of 2025 right through to about October of 2025 over here. So somewhere in there, I and many others do hope we fall somewhere over here. That would mean altcoins would have more time to grow and expand. But again, this lengthening cycle could possibly happen. So you do want to have your exit and entry levels pretty well sorted by this point. So again, stay tuned. So all in all, it's pretty uncertain, right? We have two major theories, I guess three if you want to consider that. We could land somewhere between these 2 points as well. But all we do know right now is the fact that we are going to have an explosive moment once we finish consolidating over here, right? Every single time we touch this all-time high, we sit and wait for anywhere between 20 days, which is where we are almost at right now, to about 1.5 months or almost 2 months, which would actually put us around the same point of the Bitcoin halving. So we normally have an explosive 100 or more %, and then a subsequent drop to about 20 to 30%. And this sort of continues up in this pattern like this until we have a blow off top moment. And then from there, it's anyone's guess. Now, this would really mess up a lot of people, because what people are expecting is a 4-year typical cycle ending somewhere in the later half of 2025. But this would mean that their altcoins they're sort of sitting and waiting on, when they see these highs go up, and if they don't do these exit plans and have these levels punched in, what's going to happen? They're going to hit those levels and say, oh, my old altcoin over here is going to hit even higher now, and I'm going to set these bars even higher and raise my expectations. And when, of course, then you have the influencers screaming, hey, Bitcoin is going to go up an extra $100,000 more, and Bitcoin is going to go up to this crazy price level. Like what happened in the last cycle, of course, old Jimmy tends to never sell his altcoins, which leads him to holding throughout the next bear market. So it is imperative you have these levels punched in. Prime example, every single altcoin has a narrative it's known for. Everyone's different. For example, look at Chainlink. What do you know Chainlink as? Obviously, you know it for a few other things now that it's migrated into, but it would typically be Oracle. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Well, if in the last cycle you decided to, over here, hey, Bitcoin's at, $65,000. Everyone's saying $100,000 for Bitcoin. I'm going to wait for that to happen. You're not actually executing on your sell levels you may have set up down here, because again, it might be very early in the bull market still. So what happens? Well, old Jimmy ends up waiting for the Bitcoin all-time high to happen, and in this moment, he's really excited. But yet, of course, Chainlink never gets anywhere near these levels again, which means that he's always hoping and hoping until, of course, he begins to realize, okay, we are in a bear market. All the influencers he was listening to saying 100K Bitcoin, apologize, and there's nothing that he can do about it. You know, XBobOX375 in the comment section that he was communicating with on someone's videos, well, he's not paying the price, old Bobby is. So it's very important you critically think about this and execute on these sell levels. Now, a big part of actually executing on these sell levels and making sure you're focusing on the project's well-known narrative as the point in time that you exit from is that, one, you first of all recognize the fact that the narrative is the altcoin's largest or most important point to sell, right? It's the largest trigger, and I've done lots of research on this, of course, all free on the channel. And you can see here with Cardano, for example, all Web3 Layer 1 projects, well, they had their all-time highs together. Hence why I go back there and show you all of these, right? All of these projects' narratives had their all-time highs at this point in time. You can see here, they separate themselves, at least just in these 5 examples, all the way from April 12th, 2021 to December 2021. So that's a good 8 months difference between these different projects. You can see here, Bitcoin all-time high, gaming, Quant over here for interoperability, all-time high happened again before Bitcoin all-time high, and they all happened at different times, right? It wasn't just one big moment. But the second thing here is the fact that you are patient, right? You're in these projects before their narratives really take off, and again, you have all your exit levels ready to go. So even though you might miss, let's just say 25% off the top, but maybe that works out to be an extra 10 or 20 or 30x even, the purpose here is that you have an exit plan that's going to achieve your goals, and you're realistic about those goals and expectations from the project. The last thing you want to do is buy Solana right now and expect Solana to still do 10x more. You're in a great project, the price isn't its all-time high, but you're expecting the project to overperform on what it can really deliver. So this is why an entry level is just as important as an exit and why people have to work these two hand in hand. So we'll look at entries first because this will apply for everyone. Even if you're someone who has all of your positions filled, you're 100% in crypto, of course, you're probably going to want a DCA over the course of the bull run. So this is going to allow you to work out the math before you buy your tokens to make sure that you're not pretty much adding too much on the top to where your entry level, which might be, let's just say $2 over here for render. If you add too much on the top over here at $12, you know, and you increase that too high, all of a sudden your average comes up to like $3. And that means that you, when you plan to maybe sell at $75, you might be only getting a 10x when you're programming in your mind to look at your portfolio to achieve an overall 15x. And again, this always plays back into the fact of people ending up holding their positions, waiting for a certain, you know, revenue price to come up on their portfolio tracking tool, or waiting for a particular multiple, and then it never happens, right? All because they just simply didn't look at their dollar cost average entry level plan. So here's how it works, right? If you're someone looking to add any more tops to your projects, whether over here, again, we'll use the example of buying Render at $2, or whether you bought Solana at, you know, $100 and it's now $150, no matter what happens, this is a useful tool for you to use. Allow me to interrupt this video with a quick word from this video's sponsor. Now, before I tell you who they are, I want to say they're a meme coin, right? So for all you guys in the private community and those messaging me asking for more meme coins, well, I don't really cover them too much, but when the sponsors that do hit me up seem like promising meme coins, of course I'm going to work with them to drop them into these videos. Now, of course, if you are someone who wants to participate in meme coins and do want to take on that little bit of extra risk for some of that quick juicy cash, well, this might be the project for you. The project in question is Dogecoin 20. We'll talk more about them in a second, but there is an immediate benefit, of course, by opting to play a risky game and, you know, put some of that expendable income into meme coins, because like of Sponge, which was a recent channel partner as well, these guys from their average low down here about 5x, and Smog, these guys about 7x. This coin is currently in pre-sale right now, so you can go ahead and pick it up via the website. I'll leave all links down below, of course. 2 days and 11 hours left. It looks like it's raising a lot. There's $6.8 million raised right now to, I believe, their cap of 7.2. And it's interesting because all the real utility is just a typical meme coin. It is just the fact that it's an ERC20 token built from the idea of Dogecoin. That's literally it. You can stake the token. If you buy it, you can, of course, instantly opt to have it staked. for a lockup period, but you do have the benefit of getting 145% APY. Now, yes, it's raised about $6.8 million, which is probably one of the largest funding rounds I've seen in any meme coin I've so far covered. So that, of course, is a promising sign. They've got about 4,000 followers on Twitter so far, which isn't the largest, but you have to ask yourself, is the marketing playing off here since it has so many people buying the token? As for the actual tokenomics itself, nothing appears to be going directly to the team. 25% for pre-sale, 25% for marketing, which is obviously a big part of it. They have a big budget by the look of it, so the marketing should be quite sizable. The treasury itself, right, that is the main point. I'd probably say the team will have their tokens unlocked, staking, and of course, DEX liquidity as well. I will finalize here by saying that it does have an audit, so it's been audited by CoinSol. So if you want to have a look more at the audit itself, it's all linked on the website. So thank you to Dogecoin20 for sponsoring this video. And with that said, let's get back into it. So the question always becomes, how much money can I add to my position of, maybe you've bought a whole bunch of tokens that render at $2. How much money can I add to still achieve my goals? Because essentially it's risk-free. When you add to your existing positions, it adds to the total pool, bringing up your average. But again, so long as that average still meets your goals, it is completely risk-free money, okay? You're not like going to find a new altcoin, for example, and hoping that altcoin 15x's. If you bought low enough for some of these coins, you can buy a whole heap more money and still achieve your goals risk-free. All right, so for example, this guy over here, I need a 15x from Render. I know Render can easily 30x from $2, so basically you can move that average up to allow that to happen. So ask yourself, I wouldn't mind selling at an average of $40, for example. So the math works out to be, we take our price of $40, which is why it's important to have a somewhat idea of where your project can go. Again, this is why I have my price prediction sheet built on data in the private community. And then you divide that by the multiples you're chasing. Don't look for too much, just achieve your goal. That's a 15x, so 40 divided by 15 equals how much? So we can move our weighted average, our $2 over here for Render, up to $2.66. I can roughly punch that in over here. $2.66, right? To still achieve our goal of a $40 token. So if we're looking to sell somewhere over here, we know, hey, Render is likely to still hit this point in time. We can make that happen. So what we're essentially saying is here, we can continue to add more money to Render on our current position until we reach a price of $2.66, which will still achieve our goal of a 15x. So 1,400% is 15x, right? That's how it works out to be. So that's great, all right? So obviously this allows us to add that 66 cents onto our position of just simply free gain. So here's how it's worked out. You get your cost basis, so how much money you've put into Render so far and will put in, divided by the amount of tokens owned. So let's pretend we didn't currently know that our current average buy-in for Render was $2. Well, what we'd do in this case is we'd take our $10,000 of how much we invested, not how much money we currently have made. If Render's 6x, we're not looking at 60 grand. We're looking at how much we put in, our cost basis, so 10 grand, divided by the total number of tokens we currently hold. It's 5,000 because that's what the math would work out to be, right? $10,000 cost basis divided by the amount of tokens we hold is $2. So that's our weighted average. So if you haven't already worked it out, that is how you, of course, can very easily do it. And so in this case, again, we take the $2.66. That's the new weighted average we can buy in at. How much money can we put in this case? And how much Render, of course, are we going to own overall, right? So the way I do this is basically trial and error. It's brute force. I probably do have a mathematical equation I can find for this. I've tried. You math whiz guys probably can add that down below. But all I do for myself is go to the brokerage I'm partnered with down below, Caleb and Brown. If you guys want to sign up to those guys, you can through my links down there. I use these guys for my own personal business accounts, brokerage. And so what I do is pretty much just, again, punch in roughly $5,000, right? So I'll roughly estimate what it might take. So again, $5,000 on top of this situation over here. And it'll give me a conversion on how much Render I need. Alternatively, you can go to CoinMarketCap and use that, for example, but I would use it on the exchange that you're currently using because this will allow you to be more accurate with that conversion. So in this case, what I will do is I'll punch in the extra $5,000 from here to the top of my existing cost basis of $10,000, and then add in the extra 448 tokens on top of the 5,000 I currently own, and that'll get me to $2.75. So we've kind of exceeded where it needs to be. So then, of course, I'll go in there again. I'll make it 4,000. So I brought it down a bit, 357 tokens. Of course, add that on top to the new totals over here, and it comes to 261. So we're just under. Okay, and then again, I usually get it on the third go. Sometimes I get lucky on the second go. works out to be about $4,250, and about that comes to 378 tokens, okay, which brings me to 1 cent under that point in time. Now, again, this might be a very small DCA amount, this might be a large DCA amount, but again, this allows you to add $4,250 of additional dollar cost average value to your render position risk-free. You're still going to get your 15x. You've just added a whole bunch more on. Now, this is ever more powerful if you've been dollar cost averaging at low levels for a long time. You can add a lot of money on top, just like me for my MENA position. I bought like $20,000, like very, very low at the all-time lows, basically. And of course, that allowed me to now buy just as much as I want, even at like a 4x from the lows. Now, in the example of you trying to exit, okay, so we've established, okay, this is the maximum price I'm happy to exit render at, so $2.66, and I've now achieved that if you actually went ahead and, executed on this particular trade here, adding that extra $4,250. So in your head, you're not adding any more positions to your render, okay? And so you're thinking about, okay, so how am I going to exit now? How am I going to set up my exit levels? Well, this can be a very big topic. I've spoken about this a lot on the channel, but I'm going to keep this nice and simple for most of you because it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be if you want it to be, which is why I made a whole course on this topic. But to dumb it down, basically there's two things you want to do first of all. Work out the max price your project can actually obtain. So in this case, for render, I think $100 is likely going to be the max price. You chart that. I like to use dark red for this level. Then you want to pull down 25% from this, as you can see here, and then mark that with a bright red level. This is your max ladder sell price. So for example, if you're someone who wanted the max possible results from render, you didn't want to sell at $40, you want to go for the stars, right? Realistically, you could average out at, in different stages at about this point in time, so $75. So basically you get a 28x from your average buy-in in this case. But of course, the higher you drag this little multiplier up, the more risky it becomes. If you sold down here, it's less risky. If you sell up here, above the price prediction level, it's extremely risky. You can do it, but hey, that's extra risk. So I try to get it as far as possible underneath this, which is why I make it a big point on my channel. Achieve your goals. Most people lose money in this industry because they overestimate the growth of their projects. Be simple, be realistic. Again, that's why I have my price prediction sheet in my private community. Guys tend to love that a lot. And so in this case, we are going to get our 15x to achieve our goals. So let's just stick with that and not put more risk on the table. I mean, in the case that you were actually selling over here, you might want to add some small levels down here just to be a little bit safer. So at the $40 line, what I tend to do in this case is just mark with a very clear, distinct line, which is tend to be these dotted lines you can see here, where my sell levels will be. And all it really is throwing spaghetti at the wall. If you ask ChatGPT to do this for you, ChatGPT is going to say, we're going to have to assume a few different things, right? And again, to cut a very long story short here, I think doing 4 to 5 levels for most people is okay. So let's just say we try $17 and then we go up here and try, let's say $26. And then let's go ahead and say, let's get closer in at $35. And then we'll throw one level just above at 43 and one a little bit higher at, let's say, 50. So again, throwing spaghetti at the wall here, what you're really doing is saying, okay, well, let's pretend we're going to sell at these 5 levels. What would then be my average sell price if I were to sell at these 5 levels? Is it going to be down here? Is it going to be up here? Where is it going to be? The goal being that we're going to try and sell at our intended price of $40. Now, here's the thing. Again, it's full of assumptions. The reason why I try to pick a certain amount of levels divisible by 100% is that you're going to want to figure out how many tokens you're going to have to sell at each of these levels. This all falls back into that weighted average. Again, very similar to the entry. In this case, we're looking at rather than cost basis divided by total tokens, we're looking at total revenue, okay? So if we were to sell at each of these levels, how much total revenue will we make at those levels? And then divide all of that by the amount of tokens we currently hold. So again, let's just work it out nice and divisible by 100%. We have 5 levels. We're going to sell 20% at each level. So what you would do is find out what 20% of how many tokens you hold, so that's 5,378 whenever, multiplied by 20%, which comes to 1,075.7 tokens. And then you want to sell this many tokens at each of these levels. Now that's simply worked out by 1,075.7 multiplied by the price at each level. And you'll get a nice sum of tokens. You can see here, of course, as you go up, it gets increasingly more and more. And then you do that simple mathematical equation again. So you add all of these levels up together, right? All of that revenue, which comes to 183,944, divide that by the number of tokens, and that gives us an answer of $34.20. So what this is saying is that if we sell evenly at each of these 5 levels, we're not selling at $40. What we're actually selling is way down here, $34.20. So we're missing the mark. So you're not going to get at that point in time your 15x. You're going to just undershoot that again, which might lead to a psychological mess and you holding your tokens. So in this case, you can do a few different things. You might want to add more percentages to these higher levels, okay? So you might want to sell more of your tokens rather than 20% at these lower levels. You might want to make this, for example, 10% down here and 10% here, and then add maybe, let's just say 30% up here and then 30% at this level. And that will, of course, mean more tokens here, less tokens here as well. You have to recalculate these levels too. But overall, you'll work out to have more revenue. And then when you recalibrate this, you'll find this goes up. What I think works the best is figuring out at each of these prices, obscure numbers, so not nice round numbers, because at most points of time anyway, uncharted areas, there's psychological barriers, right, that people tend to sell at. So you want to be selling at like, rather than $40, you want to be selling at like $37, for example. So you won't get hit and be bounced off that point in time. But also, again, keeping it nice and even. 10 sell levels, 5 sell levels. So it's easy to work the math out, and then just recalibrating the percentages where need be. Again, the higher you go in this case, right? So if you were targeting the very top level over here, that max letter sell level, of course, that limits you to how many you can sell above. What I tell people is it's actually better to have less sell levels up here and add more of the percent of your total portfolio to selling up here, rather than trying to, for example, add in more levels higher. Yes, adding more levels higher will allow you to achieve the same multiple, but it actually makes more sense to maybe get rid of some of these levels, or take, let's just say again, that 20% from down here, cut it down to maybe even 5% if you can handle that, and then adding the extra on top, but keeping the number of levels low. This means that you're not overexposing yourself to some crazy high prices. And of course, it means the price is more likely to hit the lower it is. Kind of confusing, I get it. And again, this is a rough overview, but this should help most people. If you follow through, if you bookmark this video, this will most definitely come in handy. And this is what you need to be doing right now, especially the fact that if you can punch this into an exchange, if we have a massive spike up over the next 3 to 4, 5, 6 months, and the lengthening cycle theory plays out and we have that crash, at least you're getting out and you've achieved your goals, rather than waiting for a time that may not happen until 2030. So guys, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video the whole way through. Let me know you have by a comment down below or a like on this video. Help support my work, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Take care.